Welcome to this explainer. Look, we're jumping straight in today because we are tackling a massive shift happening right now in the corporate world. We're talking about the transition to AI-powered cloud enterprise resource planning systems, but more importantly, we're looking at the human side of this. We're going to break down exactly why these massive, expensive AI cloud ERP projects fail and how you can empower your team to completely prevent employee resistance and those sneaky technological workarounds. Because at the end of the day, the tech is really only as good as the people who are actually willing to use it. Okay, $10.9 million. Just let that number sink in for a second. According to recent data from Forrester, mid-sized firms are losing an average of $10.9 million every single year. And the crazy part? It's simply due to the ineffective adoption of software platforms. That is a staggering amount of capital just going down the drain, not because the software was broken or the code was bad, but because the workforce didn't adopt it effectively. We absolutely have to rethink our approach to digital transformation.
So let's kick things off with part one, the AI revolution in ERP systems. We need to look at how the technology itself is fundamentally changing.
To really understand why adoption is failing, we first need some context, right? We are rapidly moving away from traditional static record-keeping systems. You know, those massive digital filing cabinets that basically just sat there waiting patiently for a human to input data. We're shifting to autonomous, continuously learning cloud platforms. In fact, projections show that by 2026, autonomous ERPs will use AI agents to handle up to 40% of enterprise operations. Think of an AI agent like a highly capable digital intern. Instead of you clicking through, 20 different menus just to match a vendor invoice with a purchase order, the agent just handles it autonomously in the background. We are talking about fundamentally shifting how businesses operate and wiping out massive amounts of manual repetition. But, as you might guess, this rapid automation isn't always welcomed with open arms.
Which brings us to part two, the danger of shadow AI workarounds. This continuous evolution brings a hidden but massive threat.
Have you heard of shadow AI? It's basically the unauthorized use of external, unsecured AI tools and informal manual workarounds just to bypass the standard enterprise systems. Now, why does this happen? Well, think about it. When employees are handed this massive top-down tech mandate without any input, they feel a complete loss of control. If you've been doing your job your way for 10 years, and suddenly a new AI system forces you into a rigid new workflow, you naturally resist. And that resistance manifests as these dangerous workarounds. Employees will literally point their personal smartphones at a computer screen to translate confidential corporate data with a public app. Or they'll dump sensitive financial spreadsheets into an open AI chatbot just to get their job done faster. It's a real nightmare.
And this creates what we call a critical governance AI gap. When users bypass the standardized system, organizations face immediate data leakage. Plus, they run into stochastic hallucinations, which, let's be honest, is really just a fancy way of saying the public AI confidently makes up completely fake information. Ultimately, all of this creates a huge trust deficit in your autonomous systems. If your workforce doesn't trust the internal AI, they just revert back to their legacy methods, and the return on investment for your multi-million-dollar ERP transformation completely stalls out.
So how do we fix this? Let's move to part three, employee participation in process design. This is the antidote to that organizational friction.
If you rely on traditional top-down implementation, where IT just dictates how the new system is going to be used, you are practically guaranteeing friction, anxiety over job displacement, and those dangerous shadow workarounds we just talked about. But when you switch to co-design, it's an absolute game changer. If your employees actively help build and validate the boundaries of the AI interactions, they understand the why behind the standard. They literally have no reason to build unauthorized workarounds because the system was built with them, not forced upon them. You ensure compliance by making them the co-authors of the workflow.
To really hit home just how important this human element is, listen to this quote from an executive at Motiva during a massive SAP transformation. They said, "If we get stuck on data or on change management, this program is not going to succeed." Technology is rarely the insurmountable hurdle, folks. Organizational change management is. Managing human behavior and actually getting people to embrace a new way of working is often far, far more challenging than just configuring the cloud architecture.
So how do we actually pull off this co-design process in the real world? Well, it breaks down into 3 steps. First, you engage users early to validate real-world workflows against edge cases. Your employees know all those weird, localized constraints that standard IT templates always seem to miss. Second, you define AI interaction boundaries together. Sit down and decide as a team exactly where the AI can act autonomously and where it must stop and ask for human approval. And third, you democratize the design using text-to-model tools. This is so cool. It allows users to literally describe a workflow in natural language, and the system builds a compliant model. You are empowering them to become the architects of their own tools.
Let's dive into part 4, the employee as partner and tech reviewer. We really need to redefine the employee's role here. To execute this massive shift, you need a solid tactical playbook. First, you select experienced change champions from within the departments. This is all about peers trusting peers. It's not about IT giving boring lectures. Next, you establish cross-functional change councils to review updates. You also need to move completely away from those massive, heavy annual training manuals and instead cultivate a culture of fast, relevant micro-learning. And crucially, you have to change what you're actually training them on. Stop making them memorize software menus and shift the focus heavily to prompt engineering and human-in-the-loop validation. They need to become confident auditors of the AI's outputs, rather than sitting there fearing the AI is going to steal their jobs.
Now, to pull this off seamlessly, we have to transition to a new enablement stack featuring digital adoption platforms, or DApps. Think of a DApp like a highly intelligent GPS for your workflow. We're moving away from the old, siloed environment, that legacy adoption inertia, where employees are just left completely alone to figure out complex screens. Instead, these platforms sit directly inside the ERP. They guide your employees step by step, providing context and training exactly at the moment they need it, right there inside the live workflow.
And all of this leads to an incredibly empowering realization for your team. The employee is no longer just a data entry clerk. Actually, scratch that, they aren't entering data at all anymore. They are governing the AI's decisions. This is an absolutely vital psychological shift. It builds immense trust, ensuring that human authority over compliance, data integrity, and ethical decisions is strictly maintained. The AI does all the heavy lifting, sure, but the human provides the wisdom and the final sign-off.
Finally, we reach part 5, measurement and the digital adoption envelope. Because, as the saying goes, you can't manage what you don't measure.
Look, we have to evolve our metrics way beyond basic passive usage stats. To know if this whole co-design strategy is actually preventing workarounds, we need to track specific things. First, the intent resolution rate. Basically, how often is the conversational AI actually solving the user's problem without them just giving up? Then, we need a process compliance index, which measures how faithfully standard processes are being followed versus how often people are deviating. And lastly, we need a model trust score. This is a vital qualitative measure to see just how confident the user is in the system's privacy and accuracy.
All of those metrics feed directly into the effective adoption rate framework. And what's absolutely fascinating about this equation is that it proves that transformation value is non-linear. Even if you deploy a highly efficient cutting-edge AI, it will yield severely diminished returns if your process integrity is compromised by shadow drift. If people are working around the system, your overall adoption rate just plummets, and it drags your entire ROI down with it.
So, sustaining that success requires continuous effort. You need to map your digital adoption platforms across end-to-end workflows, not just isolated one-off apps. You have to use analytics to spot friction and process drift the very second it starts happening. You deliver role-specific training. And here is a completely non-negotiable point. Executive sponsors must actively use the AI tools. Seriously, if the C-suite isn't using the conversational ERP for their own forecasting, the floor staff absolutely will not use it either. Leadership has to physically model an AI-first mindset.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought here. If your cloud ERP is constantly evolving, updating every few months with new capabilities, how will you empower your employees to become the ultimate safeguard for your intelligent enterprise? The autonomous technology? It's already here, and it's ready to go. But your true competitive advantage depends entirely on whether your workforce is prepared, willing, and empowered to govern it. Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer. I really hope this gives you a powerful new framework for your digital transformation.